Welcome to another episode of Raw Politics. Today, I want us to look at the real reason why Luos should vote for William Ruto come 2027. And to get us started, we will get a few facts out of the way. Fact number one, save for 2002, Luos have never supported anybody else apart from their own Raila Odinga since the reintroduction of multi-party democracy in Kenya. That is very important to understand, that since multi-party democracy was reintroduced into the country, Luos only supported somebody other than their own in 2002. And it was because Raila Odinga was working with Kibaki. It is Raila Odinga who told the Luo nation to vote for Kibaki. Otherwise, in 1992, Luos voted for Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. In 1997, Luos voted for Raila Odinga. Of course, I said in 2002, Raila Odinga told them to vote for Mwai Kibaki. After which, in 2007, Luos voted for Raila. In 2013, the same. 2017, the same. And 2022, the same. So the first fact I want us to get out of the way is that Luos barely vote for somebody other than their own. And I've given you just one instance when they did that. And the same applies to Kikuyus. Kikuyus also, since the reintroduction of multi-party democracy, have voted for somebody outside their community only once, and that was in 2022. In 92, they voted for Matiba. In 97, they voted for Kibaki. In 2002, they voted for Kibaki. 2007, they voted for Kibaki. 2013, they voted for Uhuru. 2017, for Uhuru. And of course, in 2022, they voted for one William Ruto. The reason as to why I was giving you the comparison between Luos and Kikuyus is that 2027 is also another scenario where Luos and Kikuyus are likely to vote for somebody other than their own. So it will be the second time Luos are voting for somebody who is not from Luo Nyanza, and also the second time that Kikuyus will be voting for somebody who is not from Mount Kenya. Back to Luos. Another fact I want to get out of the way is that this is not the first time Luos are engaging William Ruto. William Ruto and Luos have crossed paths before. That is 2005 to 2010 or thereabout. Raila Odinga was the party leader of ODM. Guess who was the deputy party leader of ODM? William Ruto was the deputy party leader of ODM. Had Kibaki not decided to steal that particular election and be sworn in by force, Raila Odinga would have served as president courtesy of William Ruto's support. And so, how did Luos respond to this support that they got from William Ruto? Without mincing words, they betrayed Ruto without shame. William Ruto has had a past with the Luos where he has given his all to Raila Odinga. But instead of being treated with gratitude, he was kicked out. And his demise sought by the same people he fought for. In fact, when Uhuru wanted a community to turn against Ruto, he didn't look very far. He just went for Luos. That is the second fact, that Luos and William Ruto have shared a past. And in that past, William Ruto delivered for the Luos, and Luos repaid him by betraying him. That is very important to note. The third fact is that William Ruto, even though he had a not very pleasant past with Luos, risked everything to bring Luos into government. And this, ladies and gentlemen, will form the basis of my argument today. When I say that William Ruto risked everything to bring Luos into government, I am not using the word risk carelessly. I'm using it in the strictest meaning of the term. William Ruto risked everything to bring Luos into government. Let me explain. There are those who look at Ruto today and they argue that William Ruto desperately need Luos to get re-elected. But if you dig deeper into how all this began, then you will find that William Ruto took a serious risk that other presidents may not have taken. Picture this. William Ruto was elected into office by the same combination that elected Uhuru Kenyatta into office. 3 communities decide who becomes the president of this country when 2 of them come together. The communities are Kikuyus, Kalenjins, and Luos. When 2 of these 3 come together, they do elect a president. Examples: in 2002, Luos and Kikuyus. Kibaki, president. Those who argue that Kibaki would have won without the support of Raila Odinga and the Luos are escaping very obvious facts, because all you have to do is go to the archives and see who voted for Kibaki in 1997 when he didn't have Raila's support, and who voted for Kibaki in 2002 when Raila Odinga backed him. And then ask yourself that if you removed the support Raila Odinga brought to Kibaki and transferred it to Uhuru Kenyatta, just simple arithmetic, would Kibaki have won? Just do simple arithmetics and you will find that Uhuru Kenyatta would have been the president if Luos backed him. So when Luos came together with Kikuyus, they elected Kibaki. In 2007, Kibaki remained with Kikuyus, but Luos joined Kalenjins. And Kibaki had to rig himself in because he lost that election. And how do I know that he lost that election? Kenya is a very predictable country, ladies and gentlemen. Let us not complicate things. In Kenya, it is nearly impossible to win electoral seats such as Member of Parliament and councillors and lose the presidency. That is what happened in 2007. Even in Nakuru, by then we didn't have MCS, we just had councillors. Even in Nakuru County Assembly, the majority, the leading side was ODM. That is how popular ODM won. Kibaki had to rig himself in, thanks to poor advice from entitled people like Martha Karua. But that is beside the point. I was just telling you that in 2007, Luos and Kalenjin came together and Raila Odinga won that election. He was simply rigged out. Uhuru Kenyatta understood what I'm saying here, that you need either Luos or Kalenjin to go and contest in 2013. And since he could not get Luos, Raila Odinga was on the ballot, he went for Kalenjin. And that combination, that's what I was saying, that combination elected Uhuru Kenyatta in 2013. He was overwhelmingly elected in 2017. And that combination, ladies and gentlemen, is what got Ruto elected in 2022. So all William Ruto had to do was to keep that combination. And he was guaranteed, I repeat, a second term. He won't even struggle. It doesn't matter. If he had Kalenjins and Kikuyus combined, that combination was still going to get William Ruto elected in 2027, and he would still get majority of MPs and majority of MCS. So his re-election was guaranteed. All William Ruto had to do was to keep the status quo. And so what is the status quo? The status quo is as follows. As long as you have the support of the Kikuyus, you cannot bring Luos in. I know people don't want to hear this. There are those who prefer to treat symptoms as opposed to going for the disease. The issue, the main reason why Kikuyus abandoned Uhuru Kenyatta, their son that they had voted for twice in 1 year, is because that Uhuru Kenyatta brought Raila on board and by extension brought Luos in. They abandoned that government immediately that handshake happened. And Ruto knew very well that if he brought in Luos through Raila Odinga, he would lose Kikuyus. And so here is where the risk is. You see, Kikuyu and Kalenjin guarantee you re-election. All you have to do is to keep Luos in the opposition, where some people believe they belong. Make noise, let them demonstrate, do whatever it is they do, but let them stay in the opposition. Re-election guaranteed because that combination has numbers. If you want to complicate your re-election, then bring Luos on board. Kikuyus will leave, and leaving they did. I repeat here, in 2023 around July, when Raila Odinga and William Ruto met in Mombasa, and Rigathi was in that meeting. And this is not some guesswork, because Rigathi got out of that meeting and came to tell people what was said in that meeting, where he said Raila Odinga wanted this, we told him we can't give him. He wanted this, we told him we can't give him. In fact, when William Ruto agreed that we have national dialogue at Bomas, Rigathi Gachagua went all out to fight it and even say it was a waste of time. If you can remember, he would even ask Cheriot and Ichung'wah how idle they were to waste time on things that were not going to materialize. And so the president had already said, we do this, and Rigathi for the first time was rebelling with the president. Why? Because he understood that through these talks, Raila Odinga and by extension Luos were going to come to government. And so what did they do? They planned their so-called Gen Z. And this is also not some creation, so not some imagination. They said this plainly in their so-called Limuru 3, when they asked the parents not to deny their sons fare when they called them to Nairobi to effect change. So all was planned to overthrow Ruto. Why? Because he was bringing on board Luos. So before he did it, he was supposed to be overthrown. That is why the people who were on the street were not demanding that both Rigathi Gachagua and William Ruto go. No. They were demanding William Ruto to go because they knew constitutionally when William Ruto is not in office, Rigathi Gachagua was to take over. And by doing so, there is no way that Luos through Raila Odinga would have been brought into government. But that failed. The so-called Gen Z revolution did not see the light of the day. And after that, William Ruto and Raila Odinga formalized their working relationship through the formation of broad-based government. But I said, I want to explain a risk here. You remember I mentioned that William Ruto and Luos have a history. That William Ruto supported Raila Odinga with all that he had, delivered his presidency that was stolen, but then later he was repaid by being painted as the most corrupt person, being fired. His position in ODM was watered down by splitting it into two, and eventually they kicked William Ruto out of ODM. Also praying that he should be jailed at The Hague. So These are the same people that William Ruto was bringing on board, knowing very well that if he brought them on board, he was going to lose the Kikuyus, which was a guaranteed route to re-election. So he was risking to bring them on board, not as a replacement, because the history between William Ruto is that he has delivered and they paid him through betrayal. So William Ruto took a risk. And so why did he take this risk? Those close to William Ruto will tell you that, contrary to what some people want you to believe, William Ruto takes seriously the opportunity to be president. According to him, he believes God has given him that opportunity so that he can rectify a few things that are so wrong with this country. Understandably, the status quo is fighting back, but he said he is not going to continue keeping a community in perpetual opposition. He would bring them into government, even if they were to betray him again, but they are Kenyans paying taxes. He was going to bring them into government. William Ruto said this, and I quote, that immediately he was elected, he looked for Raila Odinga. This is not a case of where William is saying, you see, Raila came to me and begged me to come. And no. He said, I looked for him, and I looked for members of the Luo community. The first place William Ruto visited after being sworn in outside Nairobi was Homa Bay. He started quoting Luos, not because he believed that they would get him re-elected. No. And he has mentioned this. Some people doubt, but I've just given you the history. There's a time he has given everything to Luos, and Luos have repaid him by throwing him under the bus. And so bringing them on board has nothing to do with expecting them to return the favor. William Ruto is just saying that even if they don't return the favor, at least they have a taste of what it is to be in government. They have a taste of development that they deserve. And I'm not creating this issue of development, ladies and gentlemen. If we are to go with what Rigathi Gachagua was openly saying recently after he had even come from United States, he said on top of a vehicle campaigning that people are not happy with William Ruto because he's taking development to Luo Nyanza that did not vote for him. That is not just Rigathi's statement. His people, the likes of Methu, the likes of Wamaua, the likes of Mutai Kahiga, they are openly saying, they have said this repeatedly, that William Ruto has betrayed them by taking development to Luo Nyanza that did not vote for him. So William did not just bring Luos into government through their leadership, because somebody will argue that, you see, those positions you mentioned that they gave to Luos, those only benefit those individuals. No. This, as Uburu puts it, is the first time a government is engaging Luos honestly, and people at the grassroots can see what this government of William Ruto is doing for Luos. Apart from putting Luos in strategic positions, ladies and gentlemen, there is real development going on in Luo Nyanza. Otherwise, there won't be those complaints or celebrating Raila Odinga's death because now development won't go to Luo Nyanza. There is real development going to Luo Nyanza. I come from Homa Bay, and I can confirm to you there are things that we had not seen there for all those years since independence. I was talking to a friend who comes from Suba South, and she was saying that since independence, that constituency has never seen a tarmac road. And thanks to William Ruto, a road that was started in 2023 is now operational, and it is tarmac. These are things that people can visualize. They can see them. They can confirm them. They were not happening. All these governments didn't do them. William Ruto is doing them. Is he doing them so that Luos can vote for him? I have told you the history. He has done a lot before, and he was repaid with betrayal. So he's not doing this with the hope that Luos are going to vote for him. He's doing this so that Luos, just like other Kenyans, can also get the development they deserve. And this, I say, was going to form the basis of why I feel or believe that Luos should vote for William Ruto come 2027 as a matter of principle. I said it was a risk. He took a risk. He threw away a guaranteed re-election to appease a people who in the past have betrayed him. But he did it nonetheless. So why should Luos vote for Ruto as a matter of principle? It's very simple, ladies and gentlemen. If you live in Kenya and you understand how our politics work, you know that we only have two camps moving into 2027. We have William Ruto camp and we have Rigathi Gachagua's camp. Rigathi Gachagua was William Ruto's deputy who was impeached. He has a vendetta. He has put up a coalition whose work is to ensure William Ruto is not re-elected, to punish him for removing him from office. Okay, so you have those two choices. William Ruto on this side and Rigathi Gachagua on the other side. The question is, which side benefits Luos? Because I want to be very honest with you. Even if Luos were to field a candidate in 2027, that particular candidate will be at the levels of Wajakoya and the Kuro Court. It would be at the levels of James Orengo when he vied in 2002. Not a competitor enough that can remove either William Ruto or even Kalonzo Musyoka if he finally becomes the candidate. So let's go with Luos having only those two choices, William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua. And I'm saying Rigathi Gachagua deliberately because that particular coalition is literally run by one Rigathi Gachagua. You even saw when Rigathi Gachagua went to the United States, the so-called opposition was dead. So which one works for Luos? You have only two choices come 2027 as a Luo. Having your own candidate will not work. You don't have a candidate that can win against William Ruto. You only have two choices. Be with Ruto or be with Gachagua's camp. In Ruto's camp, you already have strategic positions even though you didn't vote for Ruto. Two, you are seeing meaningful development for the first time since independence. And of course, that is where Raila Odinga, who you say you respect and adore, left you. On this side, history tells us that association between Luos and Kikuyus has never ended with Luos getting something in return. They are always betrayed. But even if that was not the case, Rigathi and his team are openly complaining about development in Luo Nyanza. So you join people who get angry when you get development. And of course, number three, these are people who walked out of a government they formed simply because you joined. The choice is yours, but I would advise that you beware. You are guaranteed of strategic positions, you are guaranteed of development, and of course, where you are respected. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what I wanted to say. If you found value in this video, let me know in the comment section. And if you are yet to subscribe to this channel, subscribe so that you get notified when we produce videos of this nature. Otherwise, in case you want to know the history of the relationship between William Ruto and Raila Odinga the late, watch this video.